This is the land of the great Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa, the home to Zanzibar with the most beautiful beaches in the world, and without forgetting the great savanna plains of the Serengeti. In Tanzania, you can experience almost all the wonders of the world without even leaving the country. Millions and millions of tourists flood into the country every year to witness these amazing wonders. But how do these beautiful places contribute to the growing economy of Tanzania? We have to understand, how did tourism really start in Tanzania? Back in the 18th century, when colonialism was on the rise, explorers from Europe made their way to different places in Africa. Tanzania, back then was Tanganyika, was among the many African countries. These explorers were credited by European powers for the discovery of these key natural tourist attractions, even though these natural tourist attractions were already well known by the indigenous people, having indigenous names. By the 19th century, when the Germans were effectively colonizing Tanganyika, they formally established game reserves and started tourism activities. But these activities were only established to serve the rich Europeans who came to visit Africa, and they restricted Africans from using tourist assets. Later, during British rule, they tried to promote tourism in East Africa by formation of different associations, like the East Africa Tourist Travel Association. After the independence and the formation of Tanzania, the country had 11 national parks, and by 2020, they reached 27. These are the core of tourism industry in Tanzania. The tourism sector in Tanzania is still the main source of foreign currency, and by 2019 it accumulated almost $2 billion and still remains the leading sector in growth. This led to the country allocating 33% of its land, around 312,000 kilometers, preserved for wildlife, national parks and protected areas. In the past years, there's been a growing number of international tourists in the country, and an increase in the earnings in the tourism sector to $2.6 billion, being the third country in Africa with the largest tourism receipts. In 2019, the tourism sector contributed an estimated of 1 percentage point to the GDP growth, and the sector's export services are considered higher than in other East African countries as of 2019. Back in 2018, non-African tourists increased by 31%, making it the 7th most visited country in sub-Saharan Africa. The tourism sector is a really important economic activity in the country. It has direct and indirect contribution, with the most common direct contribution being employment of thousands of people across the country, and the indirect one being the contributor in GDP growth, like capital investment. A good example is assets in accommodation, transport equipment, and leisure facilities. And the most important one is supply chain effect brought by the tourists visiting the country. But with the COVID-19 pandemic, the whole tourism sector in the world has been impacted from the cancellation of international flights and international travel bans. The sector has been the lowest in the whole history of tourism in the world. Suppliers and subcontractor companies working with tourist operators, hotels and restaurants have seen their demand severely reduced. The main tourism operators in the country are forecasting a revenue decline. But since the travel bans being lifted, there's been a very weak recovery as more people start traveling in the world, and expecting an average tourist number by next year. Tanzania has been an African magnet to foreign tourists, not only for its diverse wildlife, but also the pure natural beauty it has. Apart from high mountains, long stretches of flatlands, and clean sandy beaches, and the huge historical assets, the people from Tanzania has been among the reasons that people coming in the country. Thank you very much for watching this week's episode. We hope that you learned something. Don't forget to drop a comment, share, like, and subscribe for new episodes like this every week.